successful and have as many trophies without his time here. Had an amazing 8 years working with working with Garth. He will forever be a part of the Sounders' history and a super important part of that history. But today we're here to talk about Craig Weibel and his new role. I am super excited to work with Craig. I got to know Garth really well in the time leading up to bringing him in to be the general manager of the team, and I feel like it's put me in a unique position to understand what attributes make someone successful in the role. I've known Craig a long time, also known Craig 20 years plus. Craig has deep roots in this community. He understands our culture. He understands our fans. He understands the people in the organization. He understands our players. And, all of that wrapped around kind of a culture piece that is always so important to me. I say this a lot, but organizations win and lose together. It is the sum of the parts. It's not an individual. And something I really appreciate with Craig is he absolutely gets that. He knows that it is going to take everyone in the same boat rowing the same direction for us to continue to have success, win championships, galvanize our club, be that shining beacon for all of North American soccer to admire and aspire to. We have done amazing work here in Seattle, humbly, in my opinion, over the course of 50 years, but certainly our MLS time. And I believe with all my heart that Craig can continue that work and allow us to be even more successful. The next period of time is going to be really exciting in soccer in this community. Obviously, a bunch of you got to watch the end of the World Cup game, the Mexico-Saudi Arabia game. That level of excitement, energy, as we lead up to hosting the World Cup in 2026 is just like enough to make someone so excited about what is in store for us. But we've got lots of milestones along the way. We have an exciting new tournament in our league, in the Leagues Cup coming next year. We have a 50th anniversary coming in 2024. We have the evolution of this facility into a piece of infrastructure that will help us for the next generations. Generations of young players, generations of young people growing up in the organization, growing as individual executives, so that they may sit up here well beyond when we're all done, being a steward of the franchise and in a leadership position with this organization as a steward of this franchise, which is really what we think of ourselves as. And then again, not the end of the excitement and lead into a great period of time, but the 2026 World Cup, it is just going to be remarkable in this community and the legacy that we're able to leave behind coming out the other end of the World Cup. So, with that, again, I just have to reiterate how excited I am to work with Craig. His humility, the things that are important to him, leadership, coaching, developing people, giving people responsibility and the tools to do their job well. I have all the confidence in the world that all those attributes will continue to make the Sounders successul for the next bunch of years ahead. So with that, welcome, and great to have you on the job.
Am I next?
You're next.
That's
For
pressure.
your opening remarks.
That's pressure. Well, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for the opportunity, not only to yourself, but to the rest of the ownership. A quick thank you to my wife and daughter who are part of this journey of professional sport, which is wildly adventurous, even with a 20-year hiatus at a club. They've moved several times and fulfilled the journey with me, so it's wonderful to be back. It was awesome coming back a year and a half ago. Again, I thank Garth as well. A legacy, a standard that we all understand that Brian and Adrian, Ziggy, Garth have all built over the last several years that is just shy of perfect. They've won every trophy, and so the standard's obvious here, and that's what we intend to live up to. Not only on the field, but off the field. I really do. I embrace the growth of the people around us, the people you guys don't get to see very much of. Hopefully, we make side, and we're gonna do some structuring that I think is really gonna exploit some of the awesome talent that we currently have in our organization, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys shortly in the future. But I truly am humbled. I'm a Northwest kid. I lived on the correct side of the river in southern Washington. I might have been born on the other side, but I lived on the correct side. Grew up in northern Idaho and went to high school in eastern Washington, and I'm a ridiculously proud University of Washington graduate. And you'll see me in UW hoodies at some point, I promise. But I really do. This adventure in sport, when I entered in the MLS, I was coming back to play for Brian on loan from the Galaxy and getting to know Adrian and Brian 21, 22 years ago, something along those lines. I try to lose when I get over 2 decades. I try to forget. But what an awesome day. A club that I've known my entire life, and an unbelievable opportunity to come in here and share this opportunity and this leadership, and I look forward to really embracing all of it. And in general, I get to sit behind all of you and listen to your questions to Brian, so it'll be really interesting today to sit in the front.
Thanks, Greg. Indiana from Cincinnati,
It was.
bus trip,
Yeah.
wherever that was. I'll tell you guys that story off the record. But that story brings up his character. I think Craig's character back then, he was coming from an MLS team, coming down to help a USL program in leadership. He was one of the guys, but you could tell, he was an MLS guy and he was good and he was confident, quiet confident. So I appreciated that as a young USL coach. So thank you for that. And now as we see his career progressing, as I've watched the last year and a half of him interacting with my staff, with people in the organization, he's a really tremendous people person. And that's what I appreciate. And so I'm looking forward to an opportunity to do good things. I think you said it well. I think Adrian Zig started the club off in a very good fashion. I tip my hat to Zig a lot of times. Garth came here and did a good job. We've all done a good job. This organization is set up through the efforts of many, many people, you guys included, to be successful. And we are just going to share in our commitment to work together to try and keep that standard high and continue to win games and work in unison with all of the people in the organization to make sure that we can rise to the opportunity of the 50 years, and also, of course, what Adrian touched on, the World Cup, which it's just going to be massive. So thank you.
With opening remarks concluded, we'll turn it over to you all in the media gallery down here. If you have a question, as always, just raise your hand. I saw, John, I saw you first. We're going to bring the mic around for you.
As you take over the position here, what do you see as the primary challenge facing the club in 2023, and how do you plan to attack that challenge?
Yeah, I actually, sometimes changes are made because other people get amazing opportunities, not necessarily because something's broken. And I think that's the situation we're in. Garth got an amazing opportunity, and it was the right thing for him and his family. So I don't think there's any glaring holes, personally. Now, I am a little bit biased because I've been part of the project for a year and a half, and I acknowledge that. But I don't think drastic change is something we're looking at. We are definitely pursuing a couple of players at the moment to fulfill and fill in the roster spots that we think are the most in need, not only from a depth perspective, but for the coaches to have more choices on how to attack an opponent or how to adjust in game. And those are pretty complex conversations at times in terms of tactical understanding of how we want to go about it. But it's now my turn to sit in the key chair and listen and figure out exactly how this staff want to attack games and the adjustments they want to be able to make. And so I think in terms of addressing what we need in the short term, I think we need to believe in what we have. This group won the Champions League last year, and I think we were a little unfortunate with some injuries throughout the year to some key components of our group. But this is a darn good group, and it's one that I firmly believe in. And I think in the short run, if we can strengthen it without overhauling it, it's probably the best approach.
Stay here, Maz, and then Jeff.
Without comparing, what are you going to bring in that technical chair, given your unique experiences?
It's a great open-ended question, Maz. I can take that anywhere. Yeah, no, I appreciate the softball. No, look, I have run a club. I've made a lot of difficult decisions in the past. I think the difficult decisions are far more rare than the everyday decision. And I think continuation in this club and the belief of what's been established prior to my taking on these responsibilities. There's been a great focus on this club the last 5 to 7 years about the youth and the development and the players that are coming through. And our coaches have embraced a lot of that. And they've embraced those players. So I think continuing some of the main themes, but also acknowledging that MLS is rapidly changing and investment is rapidly changing, and structure and a team and belief in a system and something we saw, yes, we had an adverse year last year, but one thing we definitely saw across the league was teams with a clear structure that you knew what to expect every week did quite well last year. And that's something that we're going to work to define. And Brian and I and the staff have met repeatedly already about really having a very clear expectation for our fans. What do the fans expect to see when they walk in the stadium? And there were times last year where I know we spoke after games where we said, man, that wasn't anything what we thought we were going to see. Not for the good reasons, but for the wrong reasons. And that's what we attack. We attack consistency. We attack the pursuit of perfection. And that's kind of I think Brian and I share the same stubbornness in our view of that. Like we both pursue perfection with the idea that it's quite unattainable. But that doesn't deter us from that vision. So really adding that definition, that structure, the everyday experience for our players and for our staff to come in with an optimism, with hey, what happened yesterday doesn't define us, good or bad, never too high, never too low, but at the same time, last year challenged us in many ways. And we need to walk back in the door this year and redefine not only to ourselves, but to our play. We need to get right back to excellence.
Okay, we'll go to Jeff.
Hi, Craig. You obviously have a very, very good experience running a Major League Soccer franchise, but Garth Lagerwey also did. He ran multiple franchises, was very successful, came from a pretty unique legal background. I'm wondering what some of the things might be that you were able to pick up from him in the couple of seasons that you spent working alongside of him that maybe you didn't have in your first go around with Real Salt Lake and that you might be able to apply going forward?
My dad and I always joke about public speaking. We say, you know, you never want to follow the best public speaker because you're going to stand out for the wrong reasons. Garth is the best. It's fun for myself and for everyone else in the league that he's no longer in this role, because now we can actually have another conversation that doesn't involve just his name. With that said, you know, he's a mentor, he's a good friend, and I've learned a lot from him over the last 18 months, specifically on the way he interprets situation, the way he pursues players, the way he encourages staff, the way he communicates with player representatives and the likes, and also strategically how to build a roster and how to spend money on a roster effectively, and which positions do you have TAM players and designated players, all of these buckets that players fall in with titles in our league. And so just getting to spend that 18 months with him on a daily basis and hearing his ideas and getting honestly to discuss it with him and on days argue about our viewpoints and walk away with it just in a lot of respect for one another has taught me a lot. In terms of you know, my previous experience to the Sounders, I think the league evolves so quickly. It's genuinely hard to go back 4, 5, 6 years and apply that to today. We're a growing league, we're a growing business, but we're also an aggressively growing soccer culture in America. And the expectations, thankfully, from you guys increase every year. And I think that keeps a healthy pressure on Brian. I think it'll keep a healthy pressure on myself. I know Adrian has felt that healthy pressure for quite a while too as an owner. So I think when I sit back and I digest experience, it's an interesting thing, because I could rely on that to give you a bunch of canned answers as to what I think it'll help me improve upon or anything else. What it's actually, in my world, good for is reflection. And I can reflect and I can ask friends. I have many friends in this industry that are brutally honest, and I'm able to ask them, what do I need to get better at? What do you think I'm better at? What do you think I need to improve upon? And that's, I think, where the greater part of the growth comes from, is being able to make mistakes and not fear the failure. In our world, I think a good season, we win half our games, and a great season, we win just a little bit more. So if you can imagine being impressed by being good at your job half the time, or at least that's the interpretation. You know, we live in an interesting world where our performance comes down to a very minute space of time throughout a calendar year to judge ourselves against. So every day we will pursue good players. We're interested in opening our searches up to new parts of the world, new cultures, bringing in more players from other cultures, and really making this club more of what we say we are, which is diverse and accepting. And if we can bring in the domestic talent that we've always maintained, as well as add to it, that'll be a great experience for all of us. And that's where I think my experience will come in handy. I've brought a lot of international players into the league when I was at Salt Lake. I think we were able to focus on young domestic talent when I was in Salt Lake, but here I think we have a players, and I think not missing on good opportunities is going to be the key in the short run.
Okay, we'll come over to this side of the room, beginning with Jeremiah.
Yeah, when you were at RSL, you oversaw a period of a lot of change. There was, the academy moved from Arizona. You guys were building a training facility. Then you had all this other stuff that was going on outside of the field. What did you learn from all that, and how does that sort of inform you going forward?
Yeah, what I learned is none of this is easy. From when I went to Salt Lake, I was an assistant coach working for Jamie Clark at the University of Washington, and I was hired as an assistant at Salt Lake. person's job a little bit easier than it might be, and I certainly did. But going into that position, and with the transition of the academy specifically, these are fundamental changes that you can look at a million ways. You know, we all have a job to do. No one's life is perfect, and sometimes there's difficult decisions that go into trying to get to the right end. And in those transitions, you can build upon them, or you can run away from them. And frankly, what I learned in that situation was by integrating the youth of our organization back into a daily interaction with our professional players and our top level coaches was a remarkable thing from an organizational standpoint. I know Adrian touched on earlier, I really do. I believe in organizations. I believe top to bottom. I believe bottom to top. And I believe that we all need to be communicating, and I don't believe in the separation of levels. You know, it doesn't mean that coach is going to be required to know the name of every single player within our youth structure. You might not even get to see all of them in a calendar year with how crazy the world's been, but you know, we all need to be supportive structurally. And I think the biggest lesson that I took from my experience at Salt Lake is that no day is the same, no year is the same, and in sports, it can change on a dime. And we saw it yesterday with the US, you know, Pulisic injury, and you have to adjust. And I think you can only learn some things when you're in the middle of it. And this is a job that a lot of times we learn when we get in the middle of those situations. So hopefully, Brandon and I don't have a lot of problems to solve or unforeseen activity this year, but you know, we got through quite a bit of it last year with some success, and we'll right the ship.
Come over to Aaron Levine here. Matt has a mic for you, Aaron.
Thanks a lot. Congratulations, Craig.
Thank you.
Sort of piggybacking off of your last answer, the power dynamics between a general manager and a coach is different all over the country, depending on what sport and what franchise you're talking about. How do you view the power dynamic and power structure here in terms of decision-making between yourself and Brian?
I think both of us are just power-thirsty humans. I know for me, that I go to sleep every night thinking, how do I wake up tomorrow and establish dominance over the world? You know, look, this is about a unifying vision, and it's not rainbows and unicorns, and it's not perfect, but we have to disagree. If we agree every day, it means one of us isn't doing our job. And so there will be disagreements, there will be judgment on my performance from him, and there'll be judgment on his performance from me, and those will be conversations we'll have. But I know it's both of our preference that we have those conversations with each other and with Adrian. And then we open the door and we walk out and we fight on behalf of the badge. And the badge represents so much more than us. You know, like I said before, I've been gone 20 years. Turns out the club's still here. They've done all right without me. You know, so I think humility is an important thing for both of us, and I hope that power is not really a word that we express or desire, and I don't think either one of us enter into this with that as a goal. You know, we both fully understand, being Northwest guys, that this club's going to be here a long time.
Okay, we'll come back over to this side. Yeah, Jeremiah, go ahead, and since you're there, and then we'll go to Dave and Jackson back down to you. Thanks for waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Yeah, Adrian, if you could just speak to us a little bit about the process of hiring Craig and whether or not there was like a formal interview process, or if this was just a matter of a promotion, or yeah, just kind of give us how that works.
Yeah. So, you know, was somewhat complicated. Again, backing up a little bit, you know, Garth and I started sitting down talking 6 months ago about what the future would hold, and obviously.